We're going to sing two songs tonight. If you would, please take out your hymnal and turn to hymn number 510. Years I spent in vanity and pride, carrying not my Lord was crucified. If you would, please, we're going to stand and sing all three verses. Thank you for following directions, Will. Years I spent in vanity and pride, caring not my Lord was crucified, knowing not it was for me he died on Calvary. Mercy there was raised and grace was free, pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burdened soul found liberty at Calvary. By God's word at last my sin I learned. Then I trembled at his law I'd spurn, till my guilty soul imploring turned on Calvary. Mercy there was grace, and grace was free. Pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burdened soul found liberty at Calvary. Now I've given Jesus everything. Now I gladly owe him as my King. Now my raptured soul can only sing of Calvary. Mercy there was grace, and grace was free. Pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burdened soul found liberty at Calvary. And the second song should be on the screen. Matt's going to bring up to you. And my heart is overwhelmed, and I cannot hear your voice. I hold on to what is true, though I cannot see. Saying storms of life they come, and the road ahead gets steep. I will lift these hands in praise, I will believe. I remind myself of all that you've done, and the life I have because of your Son. Love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I am yours, I am forever yours. Mountains high and valleys low, I sing out and remind my soul that I am yours, I am forever yours. When my heart is filled with hope, and every promise comes my way, when I feel your hands of grace rest upon me, staying desperate for you, God, staying humble at your feet, I will lift these hands of praise, I will believe. I remind myself of all that you've done, and the life I have because of your Son. Love came down and rescued me. love came down and set me free, and I am yours, I am forever yours. Mountains high or valleys low, I sing out and remind my soul that I am yours, I am forever yours, I am yours, I am yours, all my days, Jesus, I am yours, I am yours, I am yours, all my days, Jesus, I am yours. I am yours, I am yours, all my days, Jesus, I am yours, I am yours, I am yours, all my days, Jesus, I am yours. Please be seated.
To ask you to share some ways that God's blessed you since we got together last week. I just want to get your feedback. You know, we're only experimenting with this 5:15 and 6 o'clock schedule. Jesus taught when people were asking questions about the Sabbath, hey, is it okay if we do this or do this? Is that too much? Jesus said, you've got the wrong idea about the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man's benefit, not the other way around. Man wasn't made to keep all the rules of the Sabbath. The Sabbath is for your benefit. And so the same thing's true with the Wednesday schedule. You know, we're not dead set on, hey, we need to meet at 5:15 and 6. If you think it would be better if we returned to 5:45 and 6:30, we can do that. If you think, man, we really need a little bit of a hybrid, could we do 5:30 and 6:15? We can do that. So what are your thoughts about that?
We like it. I love it. We like it because we can get home and still have evenings with the young kids and get all that stuff done.
Yeah.
Pretty normal.
Is there anybody that says this really isn't working for me? Or it's working for me, but there's somebody who's not here because it's not working for him? Okay, well, we'll stay with it, but I do think it will benefit us, particularly when the time changes. You know, there are some people that they really don't want to be out on the road a lot after dark, and so I know it will still be dark at 7 o'clock or so, but it will not have been as dark for as long as if we were getting out here at 7:30, or for those who were in choir, later than that. And so we'll stick with that 5:15 and 6 o'clock. But as I say, we are trying to schedule for benefit, not for the sake of, hey, this is the best time, so you've got to squeeze into that. Also remember that this week is our last large group time for the next 4 weeks, starting next week. We'll have 2 different adult small groups. As I said on Sunday, the adult small groups will not in any way impact our youth or children. They will continue doing what they do. The impact will just be on us. And instead of everyone being in here together next week and for the following 3 weeks, we'll be in 2 different small groups. Philip's going to do a small group. It's a video-based series from Andy Stanley called The Bible for Grown-Ups, and Pam Galloway's going to do the other one on the book of Habakkuk. What do we learn about God and say to God when He doesn't seem to be speaking, and what He does speak seems to be unfair? And so those 2 are where we'll go next week. I don't exactly know where each will be. You can help us know where they need to be, though, by signing up. There are 2 sign-up sheets in the hallway going out by the office. That way, if we can just get some sort of estimate of who's going to be where, then we can put them in the right room and make sure that you know about that. All right, what are some ways that God has blessed you since we got together last Wednesday? I'm going to start us off. Monday, I took I had a little bit of a detour because of the junior high football schedule. And so I zipped back over here quickly because I wanted to run to the post office. I was expecting something and then wanted to run to the bank and put some checks in from where I had spoken over the previous week. And so I got out of, I have a post office box at the downtown post office. And so I got out of my car and started to walk into the post office. And I went to hit the button to lock my car door. And I said, oh my goodness, I had left that key sitting on the little panel of the little console there in between the two seats there in the front. I guess my pockets were full of church keys and everything else. And so when I got in the car, I just put that key down. And so when I walked back to the car to get my key, I noticed that there was a check on the ground in front of my car. And I said, somebody's dropped a check here. And so I walked up and picked it up, and it was one of the checks that I was going to deposit in the bank. Now, I am not one of these people who believes that every single circumstance of life either was caused by the Lord or the devil. You know, I have heard people when I've been speaking, you know, have some sound issues and the devil's trying, and sometimes it's just a bad wire. But I would not have had any idea where that check was if I had not left that key on that console and thought about it. I mean, it would have been just as easy because I didn't have to have that. You know, I keep my car key separate from the post office box keys and things like that. It was just that moment of, I don't have that, and going back and seeing that. And so I would have missed that $11. And so I was glad that I got to go. This was a Baptist church. And so I was thankful that happened. I genuinely believe that was something the Lord did. What's a way that He's blessed you?
I was blessed today. I was walking on campus at the W to the post office and ran into Sam. I'm the BSU director and a couple of guys. They were prayer walking. So I talked to them and they prayed with me about something, and I thank them for being a light on the campus. And that's not the first time this semester that I have encountered them. They actually came by our office and asked for prayer.
Right.
And so, and I think the Wesley Foundation is very active on campus too. So, I mean, that's just a real blessing to have that.
I agree. Some of you may not be familiar with Southern Baptist work, but on every campus in our state, every university, college, and community college campus, Baptists have a ministry called BSU. And BSU was very, very influential for me. I cannot overstate how profound what God did in my life in my 4 years at State through BSU is. I mean, it was life-changing. We have the best BSU director in the state at MUW. I speak all across the state at these camps. Sam Ivey is the best BSU director in the entire state. And he's here on our campus at Mississippi University for Women. He also helps with the EMCC Golden Triangle campus. And so we are really blessed to... Somebody say something? They watching YouTube. Here we're trying to talk to the Lord. And they're back there. They're watching. Hey, look at this cat video. And so, yes. Look at that little cat. So we are blessed. We are blessed to have Sam, and I am grateful that they're on campus. Mr. Eves.
We mentioned doing something to the shrubbery and stuff outside out here at men's breakfast this morning. And I come up this afternoon and I could not believe it had already been done.
That's right. They got after it.
Guys that need to be mentioned, that did it and cleaned it up like it is, and I mean, it really looks good.
Who? I know Mr. Tommy,
Tommy Hall,
Rick Garner,
Gardner, who was,
Wayne Ellis,
Wayne Ellis, and Alan Lynn.
and Alan. Were you out of school Monday?
I went over there today.
All right. That's good. I don't know if you noticed that, but there were some dead plants, over there by there, and so they pulled those up, and the ones that were still living, they pruned them back so that they wouldn't. Those two by the office door, they were really big, and I just kept thinking, man, if Judy or Becca or somebody's here by themselves and they come out of that would be a perfect hiding place for somebody to, see, hey, there's just a car up there, knock them in the, now, if you hit Judy in the head, you're going to come back with a sore hand. But you still, I just, want us to be safe. So I do appreciate that. That's good. Go ahead, Miss Linda.
Well, I really like this, like that you do this and we get to share every week. But either fortunately, I have two.
Good. Well, let's hear them.
Monday, our oldest grandson and his family live in San Angelo, Texas. And he is the IT person for the San Angelo County School District. And she is a secretary in that same building. Well, and I'm not sure if it was one of their students or just somebody, but there was a teenager posted online. He had one bullet in his hand, and he was showing his face, and he said, I have 100 more, but this is going to be for me at Central High School.
Mm.
And that's where Jonathan and Linda are at Central High School. Well, he was identified immediately and arrested, but they had a few tense moments.
I'm sure. Well, we're glad they're safe.
And then yesterday, my little autistic great-grandson's school bus in Tupelo had an accident. But it was right before he was picked up. None of the students were injured, but he wasn't on the bus.
Okay. Well, good. Good.
That was really good.
That's right. Good. Mr. Doug.
Well, Julie and I were at a Emmaus walk this weekend, so what else can you say? That, we served and the walk went well.
Good. Who else?
Every day at lunch, I try to, when I'm not running errands, I try to go to a different spot in town, just sit and eat lunch, because 27 years of driving back and forth to Macon, I'm just lost here in town. So I enjoy doing that. But anyway, I was parking in the parking lot at Dollar General the other day, and I was just sitting there having my lunch, and I saw this guy leaned up against the wall, and people would come by and speak to him, and when they would, then he would ask them for money. And I said, well, that's kind of weird. It's not the thing to do. And I saw two black women go by, and they stopped there in front of the guy, and they circled and held hands, and they prayed. And that just kind of touched me, So I sat there and finished my lunch. The ladies went on in, they didn't give him anything. And just something just came over me and said, well, Butch, you need to move on this. So I finished up and got out of the truck, and I immediately took some money out of my billfold, because I intended to do something. But I took some money out and walked up there and had it in my hand. I acted like I was just walking in. I turned around and spoke to him, and he was just as kind and polite as he could be. And I said, how are you today? He said, I'm doing good, just trying to sum up a little money. Need to do something. I said, all right. I said, I noticed you prayed with those ladies a while ago. He said, yes, sir. He said, and I sure appreciated that. And I said, well, you do believe in God, right? He said, yes, sir, I do. I said, well, do you believe in blessings? He said, I do. I said, well, I'm going to share this with you. And I handed it to him. And he looked at it, and he says, how did you know how much I needed?
That's awesome.
Never felt nothing so strong in a long time. It was almost like it was just meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I normally don't do that. But I got to thinking about what we can do for others.
Yep.
And I knew he was in need. And just, I found a blessing.
Good. Good. Somebody else had a hand up. Or maybe I'm. Do you remember the first night that I tried to get y'all to do this? And you sat there like regular Presbyterians, not Cumberland Presbyterians. I'm grateful to see that because I want us to have an awareness that God's not somebody that we meet here on Sunday and then drop back in on Wednesday. He's at work every single day. There's not a single moment in any day of the week that He is not intimately involved in our lives, and we need to be aware of that. Just to have our finger on the pulse of God, what are you saying? God, what are you doing? How are you working in me? And the more aware we are of how He's working, the more we will see that how good His work is. And so let's keep doing that. Open your Bibles, please, to Judges chapter 4. I want us to spend just a few minutes tonight talking about two Old Testament characters, Deborah and Barak. The book of Judges is a good place for you if you ever are interested in doing some personal Bible study on unlikely heroes, who are some people that we hardly ever hear mentioned or maybe never hear mentioned, but have significant stories with God. The book of Judges is a good place to look for those because there are several characters in here that you say, well, you know what, I didn't even really know his story. In fact, there's a man named, there he is right there, Ehud, in Judges 4:1, if you go back and look at his story, Ehud was a man that God appointed to go lead Israel, and the oppressing king at the time of Ehud was named Eglon, Eglon. And so Ehud said, I've got to go deliver Israel. This king is oppressing us. And so the Bible includes this detail that Ehud was a left-handed man. Now you may say, well, what difference does that make? Well, when Ehud went to see this oppressing king, his bodyguards knew that Ehud was a Jew. Why are you going to see our king? I've got a message for him. And so this seems odd. But when they would have frisked him for weapons, most people back then, as today, are right-handed. And so their knife would be over here, so they could get it out like this. Well, the Bible includes the detail that Ehud was a left-handed man, meaning his knife would be over here. And so the people said, okay, you're clear. Go on in. And so Ehud slipped in. He said, King, I've got something to tell you. He said, what is it? He said, no, it's a secret. I got to tell you up close. So the king said, come here. And Ehud took his knife out and he stabbed the king with it. And I love the Bible's raw honesty. There are things in there we would never say in polite company. But the Bible says that Eglon was so fat that the knife went all the way up in him, and his rolls covered it up. And then Ehud slipped out the window and off he went. Well, after he died, Israel went through this period where they were rebelling against the Lord again, and so now they needed help. And so Barak comes onto the scene. I've got 4 lessons that I'm going to mention quickly here. First, God always needs people to stand up for what is right. Look in verse 1 of chapter 4. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud had died. So Israel did not learn their lessons. They never learned their lesson. In fact, if you go all the way through the Old Testament, Israel never learned their lesson. They constantly were straying from God. And every one of those periods, God needed someone to stand up for what was right. Same's true today, isn't it? I mean, in cultures, in vacuums, where there are no people standing, chaos just ensues. I mean, people just do whatever they want. They start raising issues that you thought would never even be a blip on the radar, and now they are front and center. That can happen when there are no voices speaking. That also can happen when conflicting voices are speaking. There are people in our country who are faithful to God. There are people who dearly love Jesus Christ. They are trying to stand for what is right, but competing voices are just as loud or louder. I don't think that every church in America has abandoned Jesus Christ. I think that there are some very, very faithful individuals and churches, but our voices sometimes do not match the voices that conflict with ours and compete with ours. And sometimes it's not just no voices or conflicting voices, it's weak voices. The Church of Jesus Christ has to be bold. I don't think anybody in this room would disagree with what I'm about to say. Our enemies are bold. The enemies of Jesus Christ are in your face with their opposition. And sometimes the church just melts and goes to the side. We have to have strong voices. And here in this passage, when Israel had been doing what was wrong, the Lord said, okay, here's the situation where we are. Now drop down into verse 2. The second idea is that God always uses people who will speak up. Verse 2 says, so the Lord sold them to King Jabin of Canaan, who reigned in Hatzor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth of the nations. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord because Jabin had 900 iron chariots, and he harshly oppressed them 20 years. Deborah, a prophetess and the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. She would sit under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went up to her to settle disputes. She summoned Barak, the son of Abinoam from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, hasn't the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, go deploy the troops on Mount Tabor, and take with you 10,000 men from the Naphtalites and the Zebulunites? Then I will lure Sisera, commander of Jabin's army, his chariots and his infantry at the Wadi Kishon to fight against you, and I will hand him over to you. So here the situation is very desperate. Israel recognizes that it's very desperate. They cry out to the Lord and they say, God, we've messed up again, but we mean it this time. We are turning back to you. And God said, okay, I'll give you another chance. And so Deborah, who was kind of the leader at that time of Israel, sent for Barak and said to him, come here, I've got a message for you. God has appointed you. Israel's army is about to rise up, and you're the person to lead it. I'd like every single person in this room, in your own personal time with God, as you are taking next steps, to tune your ear to God and say, God, how might you use me? We're in a chaotic culture. God, wickedness is ravaging our society. And it's not just way out there, it's here. God, there is brokenness everywhere. Could I be a Deborah? Could I be a Barak? God, is there a specific assignment that you might give to me, that you could use me to be salt and light in our society? And so it seems the indication here is, I'm kind of inferring here, but it seems like the Lord may have been speaking to Barak, and he either was hesitant, which we'll see in just a moment, or perhaps he just wasn't hearing. But for some reason, the Lord said, Deborah, you got to go get Barak. And so she did. And so it may be that what the Lord could do for us is that it might be a conversation with a friend that sparks something in us to say, you know what, that's what I need to. It may be that as we were sharing these ways that God has blessed us tonight, God said, hey, I'm talking to you through that. You need to act in those ways or whatever. And so God always is calling out people. When things get bad, God doesn't say, man, I just can't do anything with that. He starts saying, where's Deborah? Where's Barak? Who will go out for me? Just as he did in Isaiah chapter 6. Whom shall we send and who will go for us? And Isaiah said, well, how about me? And Deborah and Barak here said, how about me? What if you said, how about me? God, how about me? And so God is always calling those people out. The next point that I want you to see is down in verses 8 and 9, and that is people should be willing to stand alone, but they may not be able to. In verse 8, after Deborah had this conversation with Barak and said, look, the Lord is calling you, Barak said to her, if you will go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. Barak said, look, I don't know if I can do this. That's why I think that maybe he had heard God speaking to him, but he just wouldn't act on it. He was finding a rationalization and an excuse. God, I don't think you're saying that to me. But God was speaking to him. And so now Deborah becomes the voice piece, the mouthpiece of the Lord, and said, you know God is calling you to do this. Go do it. And he said, well, I'll do it, but only if you go with me. I'm not going by myself. Now, we all can sympathize with that. We all can sympathize with the fact that sometimes we need encouragement and support. But the point remains, when God calls us to do something, whether or not anyone joins us, we need to do it. You know that hymn that we sing sometimes in church services, the hymn is, I have decided to follow Jesus. You know that one? Do you know that? I think it's the second verse. It may be the third one. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. And sometimes, maybe in a workplace or a school setting, maybe in a certain circle of friends, we'll be the only voice that stands up. Now, if we have supporting cast, let's link our arms together. But we can't ever say, hey, God, if I don't have backup here, I'm not going to do it. Sometimes we will have to stand alone. And so that's why when we gather here on Sundays and Wednesdays, it's important for us to have all of our church family here so that we can get recharged and re-energized, because some people if they were here on Sunday, they're going to have something on Thursday or Friday and their tank is running low. They need to get it filled back up so that they will have the strength to stand toward the end of the week too. And so Barak said, well, I'll go, but only if you go with me, which leads me to the next thing, that we really need to surround ourselves with quality, godly people. Because verse 10 says, verse 9 says, I will gladly go with you, she said, but you will receive no honor on the road you are about to take, because the Lord will sell Sisera to a woman. So Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kadesh. She said, I wish you would do this by yourself, but if you won't, I'll go with you. We need friends like that. We need people who will see us in challenges and difficulties. We need people who will initiate and say, I am praying for you. We need people who will check on us. In fact, my phone buzzed just a little while ago. I have done tons of speaking through the years for First Baptist Church Starkville. It's the church that I've spoken for more than any other. Are they watching a cat video down there? And so there is a college graduate from First Baptist Starkville who has taken the MCAT. And well, I won't tell you her name, but she's taken it twice. The first time her score was not high enough that she thought she would get in medical school. And so she took it again in August, and she sent me a text and said, "Hey, I want to talk with you. I've got some news." Well, I think it's good news. I think it's something that's going to be positive. But to show you how God is working in me, I have not waited for her because she's been really nervous. Her family's very high achieving, and I don't mean that in a negative, demanding sense, like, what's wrong with you? They just all do well in their lives. And so she feels some embarrassment because she did not do well the first time. And it was a blow to her. Well, I have not waited for her to text me to say, "Hey, pray for me, I'm studying." God's really been working on me to show more initiative. And so I have tried to, rather than if she texts me to say, "Hey, I'm taking a practice test tonight, okay, I'll pray for you." I've tried to initiate that. And so we need people like that in our lives, like Deborah was with Barak. Said, "Oh, absolutely, I'll be right there with you. You're going out on the battlefield, you turn your head to the right or to the left, I'm going to be right beside you." When we have those types of godly friends, we discovered that even the biggest challenges that God calls us to take, we can handle them because we've got His people with us. And so make sure that you've got those types of people in your lives. One of the messages that I have coming up in this Next Steps series is coming up this Sunday. It's asking for a friend. I knew I was going to be talking about Deborah and Barak, and so I planned for this message to be asking for a friend. And we're going to talk about David and Nathan and how they were so close that even in the hard parts, Nathan said, "David, I'm going to be right here for you. I'm here with you in these tough times, not just the easy times." And so I hope you'll be with us Sunday morning. I'm really looking forward to our being together. You're going to see some people at work, school, neighborhood, somewhere tomorrow, and they need to be with you Sunday morning in church. Some point, you're going to see somebody on Friday, Saturday. Invite them. Hey, will y'all turn off the recording so I can say